Welcome back. We're your hosts, Ruby Wilde.
And I'm Melissa Mae.
And this is Bloody Besties. All right. What topic did I give you for today?
Today we have love.
All right. Let's go.
Did you know some people can't experience love?
No.
Not all of us are lucky enough to know how wonderful love is. Some people have never felt romantic love in their entire life. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Such people suffer from a rare condition called hypotuphism. Or
hotness.
Hypopituitarism.
Okay. You know what that reminds me of? You know that there's a German girl and there's TikToks and her husband gets her to say hippopotamus. Hippopotamus.
I love mixed couples.
Oh my gosh.
And their accent.
But like, you've got to look it up if you're listening. Hippopotamus. Hippopotamus. I got it that time. She's hilarious. That's what that just reminded me of.
It's a terrible word. So it's a rare condition in which the pituitary gland doesn't make one or more hormones or doesn't make enough hormones. It's a weird sentence.
It's fine.
The pituitary gland is a kidney bean-sized gland at the base of your brain. It's part of the body system of glands that makes hormones called endocrine system. And this condition doesn't allow a person to feel the thrill of love.
I think pituitary is also the thing that's responsible for people getting gigantism. I have to research that, but if I remember correctly, like, you know, those people that are like 7 to 8 feet. I'm sorry.
I have issues.
Listen, this mic stand is like trying to get me to talk on it.
There's a ghost.
No, my house has the ghost. Oh, before we get started, I should share the story that happened when my mom came to visit.
Oh.
I don't even know if I told you, but I swear, okay, we have a ghost dog, which is fine.
Yeah.
And our old house had a ghost that everybody agrees there was a ghost in that house. Anybody who's ever been there knows.
Luckily, I had not witnessed it, but I never spent the night.
Right. It like our former roommates and people that spent the night all agree. If you didn't believe in ghosts before, you would believe in it after. Because at the old house, we would have lights randomly turn on and off. Our fan would randomly turn on and off.
You had pennies drop on you.
Okay, the pennies thing was crazy. Okay, I think I already said about the pennies, right?
I don't know. I just remember you telling me.
Yeah, like there was one time I was in the shower and then next thing I know, a penny dropped on my foot. And I thought it was my husband messing with me, but he wasn't even upstairs. And then like another time I was in my car and I had a friend sit in the passenger seat and I lowered my visor and a penny dropped out of my visor onto my lap. And she's like, why do you keep pennies up there? I'm like, I never have. And then there was another time that I was laying on the couch and next thing I know, I felt a penny drop on my stomach. And then when I was at work one day, it was a black button and I was like, here too. And then I realized it just popped off my pants.
Oh, so I'm sure you looked it up. What does that mean?
It's called pennies from heaven. And it's known. It's like well known to have like pennies just appear from spirit realm, if you will. I was like, I'd like it more if it was like dollars. But yeah, that has not happened since we've moved. But I now have a ghost dog that I have, you know, out of the corner of my eye seen, tried to pet a few times thinking that it was my dog, even though it's a border collie. So I don't know why I keep thinking it's Rebel, but I get nose boops, things like that. So this one, this dog is whether you believe in it or not, there's only so much you can ignore. And at the old house, I did feel one time my husband was down the hall in the shower. I heard it going and I was laying in bed and I felt a man's finger poke my shoulder.
How'd you know it was a man?
You know how you could tell the difference? It's like meaty, no nail. No. Like your husband poked you and I poked you. You'd be able to tell the difference.
I feel like you would be meaner, like a harsher.
No, like if we did it at the same time, like if you look at the tips of your fingers. But anyway, so we were here and my mom was visiting and we're both sitting on the couch and she had left her Kindle in the kitchen. And out of nowhere, we're talking. And then her Kindle starts full volume having a children's song about dragons play. She gets up and opens up her Kindles and the lyrics are scrolling on the Kindle. That's my mom's ghost. She brings it with her because that one, that I've never had
dog.
Yeah, I've never had anything like that happen before or since. So, and
Your family is haunted.
oh, very much so. My mom's had it for years, like a sensitivity, if you will. But yeah, I'm a believer because it's happened directly to me. A lot of people are not, or they've never experienced it. But yeah, that one there is no explaining that. And even I've got some coworkers that they're like, ghosts aren't real. And I told that story and they're like, burn the house, throw away the Kindle.
Stage that shit.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Hey, if they're not evil, I ain't staging. You can stay in my house.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even know how we got onto that topic. Pituitary. Oh, the ghost. The ghost in your mic stand.
Oh, yes. Trying to get 2 mics on you and not on me.
Yeah. In reality, we're just poor and have cheap mic stands.
Correct.
Again, buy us a coffee.
Might have to take apart every time we start.
Poor Melissa. Microphone every single recording session. We have to pull it apart and she has to wiggle the wires.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. All right. So now that we've spent, 7 minutes talking about nothing. Wait, no, we got fun fact in there.
Yeah.
About pituitaries. We're going to get started.
And the not so fun stuff.
This case happens July 23rd, 1980, when David Davis, who was 35, and his wife, Shannon Moore, who was 25, 10-year difference, they went to visit their neighbor, Dick Britton, on his farm in Hillside, Michigan, on horseback. So they were neighbors. They rode their little horse over there. David helped Dick fix some farm equipment. They jumped back on their horses to continue on with their ride, just having, lovely side-by-side horse ride through the properties. All seemed fine until all of a sudden Dick saw David racing back on horseback with no Shannon in tow. So full gallop. Yeah. He was sweating and he had blood on his shirt. So he was like all in a panic, galloping, full sweat, blood on his shirt. And he's like, Dick, Shannon fell off her horse and she hit her head. Help, 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 help.
And where's her horse?
I was wondering the same thing.
Because the horse nature, they'll follow each other. They're herd animals. So I was expecting to say she fell off a cliff with her horse.
Yeah, no. And there's no mention of where her horse was from this point forward. So sorry about that.
We'll just assume it was next to, they were all together.
Theoretically, yes. All right. We'll go with that. I love that we just said the same thing. So the men returned to where she was. Her shoes were off, her blouse was undone, and her skin was already growing pale. They picked her up, put her in Dick's car, took her to the hospital, but she died, having never woken up. David told the hospital that she was to be cremated. Well, her parents were like, no, that is our daughter. We're going to take her back to Toledo, Ohio, which is where she's from and where the family is, and we'll embalm her and bury her. And so David acquiesced because he was like, this is not worth the battle. And, all was fine. This was a horrible, tragic accident for the couple because they had just started on the relationship. They met at a wedding of Tom and Regina Davis, so related to David, on August 4th, 1979. They fell hard and fast. She had lived in Toledo, Ohio. She found out he was a millionaire. He had farms all across the country. He told her that he was orphaned as a child, served in the military, and then became a property developer, which is why he was so successful. They married September 24th. So they met August 4th. They were married September 24th, 1979. Yeah, that's short. Very. So very whirlwind. They then moved to his farm in Hillside. David bought them like a pair of walking horses, Tennessee walking horses. I don't know what makes them like a walking horse versus
It's the breed.
Okay, so Tennessee walking horse is a breed. It's not like a walking shoe versus a running shoe.
Yep, it's a breed.
Why? Why call it that?
Oh, well, like a quarter horse is a breed and an Arabian and Appaloosa.
Yeah, but you don't call them like quarter running horse. like why is it a walking horse?
Because they walk, as a normal person would say, funny. They have really high steps, and we are in the South, so Tennessee walkers are the majority of the horses we have here. They really high step, and you see like when they're showing the gentlemen that ride them have like top hats on and the suits.
Did
Are you picturing it now?
yes, 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 yes. And do they have like the really high steps? Like because like this area is usually like very terrainy.
They're good for trail riding too, and we have a lot of
Mm.
rocks.
Okay.
But they're $1 million show horses. Like it's crazy.
Oh, well, he bought two of them, one for him, one for her. That was kind of like their wedding present. And she loved, they would just ride around their property. Their dogs were in tow. And her nephew would often go out on the horses with them. And that day that they had gone to ride, Shannon's nephew and mother were staying at the house. The nephew was going to go, and they were like, just let it be just the two of us. And that would sound weird, except for this couple. They were newlyweds, and they like to sometimes have fun when they were on their own, regardless if it was outdoors or indoors.
Take a break from riding and, rest your back.
Yes, in a way. So it seems really weird, but
While the
according,
horses watched.
I mean, it seems weird, but apparently it was known that they did. And so they told the nephew, no, not this time. In addition, once they visited Dick, his son a lot of the times would ride back with them. So, I mean, if you think about it, the nephew's usually with them and then the son would ride back. But this time they again told his son, like, not this time. We're just going to not go home right away. Wink, wink. So police asked David what happened, and he said that they were riding. He was in front. He heard Shannon scream, and when he turned around, she was on the ground. He said he dismounted, moved her to the side of the woods, and went for help. I don't know why he moved her or whatever, but that's how he got the blood on his shirt, is when he moved her. And then Shannon's mother also noticed that he had a scratch on his hand and his face at the hospital. So like the parents, like I said, the mom was staying at the house. So she went to the hospital and she saw that David was there. This was where Shannon passed, and he had a scratch on his hand and his face. And the weird thing is 2 days later with the funeral director, like I said, they transferred her body. The funeral director, Robert Shirting, also said that she saw what appeared to be scratches on his hand and face, but this time he was wearing makeup on them.
Oh.
Again, I mean,
And technology in the 79, they weren't doing DNA yet.
This is
We're at
1980
now. So they didn't have DNA yet, so they couldn't scratch under her nails.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I mean, they had DNA and you could get, different blood types with skin cells and things like that, but it was an accident. Like she fell off her horse. So why would you think it's anything else? I mean, the police had to respond because obviously she didn't die in natural causes. So they were questioning, but when somebody asked about the scratches, he said, "Oh yeah, that happened when I was riding through the trees to go and get help because I was going so fast," which is super plausible. Now, police went to the site where Shannon fell to corroborate David's story, and they found a half-buried rock with blood on it. So she fell, hit her head on a rock. Her shoes were like 8 feet from where the rock was, which I don't know why the shoes would have fallen off. Maybe they were just tied loose and like they got caught in the stirrups, maybe. I don't know. But they collected the shoes and they just gave them back to David. Now, Dick and his wife also wanted to go back to the site and just, see like what happened here. And when they went, they have a keen eye. Probably you would have noticed this too, because I'm like, what? But they saw on a branch, kind of like, again, 7, 8 feet from where the bloody rock was, there was, they called it bruising on the branch that appeared that the horses had been tied there or
okay. So maybe the bark was removed a little bit or smashed in.
Something like that.
Okay.
They just said bruised and I didn't know what that meant. And in addition, they saw the horse manure in that same area. Meaning, okay, see, I just assumed that they would like walk and go, like bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah. Well, they do walk and go. Some horses you have to kind of push them along because they don't want to get poop on their legs.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
I've had some stop and poop and
okay,
try to kick them along.
I can
but
see
most
that.
of the time you're walking and pooping. So it sounds like he tied the horse up. The horse stood there and pooped.
Yep. So 2 horses stood there and pooped. Now, we wouldn't be talking about this case if it was just a tragic accident. It's just not what, I don't want to say not what you're here for, but it's not what we would be talking about. So obviously this is not a tragic accident. And things started to turn when her parents found out that the couple had taken out life insurance policies just a couple weeks after their wedding. And it was valued at $110,000 per person. So they each got one with $110,000. They were each other's beneficiaries, and they both had a double indemnity clause, which is if you die in an accident, it doubles the policy. So tragic accident, he was set to collect $220,000. And when they found out that he was trying to collect this, and they were kind of sketched out because he said they didn't have life insurance policies. And then they found out about this. So the parents immediately filed an injunction to stop him from being able to collect it. And he never showed up to the court date to fight it.
Wow.
Spidey senses are now tingling. So they said they fought to have their daughter's death looked into again. And they wound up exhuming her body about a month after her burial because they were like, something's not right. So the parents, they fought, they won.
So I learned, I don't know if it's statewide or what, but the coroner is in charge of whether you're going to launch an investigation or like if it's natural causes or not. They can choose to, if you think it's natural, like in this case, the coroner could be like, I'd like to investigate this. And then they have jurisdiction over the family. And then,
yes. And I do know some states, some counties even have a policy that unless person, like if you die at home from natural causes, but it's like known, like say you were doing hospice at home,
right,
there wouldn't be an autopsy.
Right.
Or if you died in a hospital setting where again it was just assumed that you were end of care, then there's no autopsy. Other than that, you will always have an autopsy.
Can I add the Murdoch case?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for not remembering her name, but the maid, she died in the hospital. They did not do an autopsy on her.
Yeah,
that's so sketchy.
At very minimum, they may not do an extensive autopsy. It may just be collection of samples for toxicology.
Yeah.
But if they notice any sort of external trauma or it's suspected to be any sort of toxicological situation, they will collect a sample. So in this case, there was no autopsy done. Again, it's 1980s. It's Michigan. I don't know what the laws are in Michigan specific to that, but we'll get to it. They did take a sample from her.
Thanks to the family members that, or whoever those two guys that went out there to look at the site on their own, or else it would have been.
Yeah. So with the couple that went out to the site and they were like, something's weird. And then the life insurance policy, they were like, and like, of course, I'm skipping over all the reporting because they were like, he wasn't acting proper. He wasn't, mourning. He wasn't this. And everybody has
different.
Some people shut down. Some people bawl. Some people go catatonic. Some people, they just try to move on with their life. And that's how they move on. There is no right way to do this. Right. So anybody who's like, he just wasn't acting right. Unless he's like throwing a party going, woo, glad they're dead.
Getting married the next day.
I mean, come on. Like there's certain times that you're like, but this is not one of them. So all the people that bring it up, blah, blah, blah. Technical term. So her being exhumed less than a month after her burial led to August 25th, 1980, when doctors Stephen and Renata Vasquez performed her autopsy and sent tissue samples to Dr. Forney of the Medical College Hospital in Toledo, who, very long story short, okay, what he did is pretty freaking amazing, very scientific. There was a peak on the chromatograph that they couldn't identify. Somebody told them to start looking at a certain drug. They were like, no, but we're going to run it anyway.
That graph machine, is that the one that they had in Antarctica that they didn't fire up to warm up?
No, it's a different one.
It was something, a graph something.
Yes.
Okay.
But this one is, so that one you run the blood itself into the machine and it'll cycle through. This one you have to extract
body fluid.
Yeah. Or if you have a tissue sample, you have like stuff that breaks down the tissue sample. Whatever was in the tissues now goes into the liquid. That liquid is then shot into the gas chromatograph. So this gave a peak that was unknown at the time. So they didn't have. Okay, I'll give you the background. what you do is you have your standards, so your known compounds. And if your known compounds aren't run with it or run at that day, or it's not something that you normally look at, you're not going to have an identifiable piece. So this was an unknown one, meaning that they didn't have this standard normally in their system. Without telling you what the drug is, somebody said, run this drug. And they were like, okay. And then they tried, replicating because they ran the peak and they were like, yep, that's the peak. And then they did their own studies and figured out the different extraction process through tissues. So they would put it in tissues, extract it, and it gave them the same exact peak that was in her body tissues. Like I said, very long story short, they identified it. And this peak was succinylcholine.
Say what?
All right. So most people that listen to true crime, you may have heard about this. It's called SUX. Hence the title of this episode, SUX. I'll get into what it is in a bit, maybe in a few. Don't worry, we're getting there.
Give it to me now.
No, and if you want the super in-depth about succinylcholine and the science behind it and very specifics, we have a case also over on Vintage Homicide. It's the Dr. Carl Coppolio case where we talk about succinylcholine in depth over there. Miss Mayday covers it. But this isn't a podcast for that. Okay, now that they found the succinylcholine, she had already been buried again by now because science takes forever. It's not CSI, okay, people?
Yeah.
So they had to exhume her again to confirm this because it took so long to confirm that this was succinylcholine. And so that re-exhumation happened July 1981 because they needed to find out the delivery path, if you will.
Yeah.
And they did find there was a bruised area on her right wrist and her shoulder. The one on her shoulder had a cyst that was consistent with a subcutaneous injection. And they removed the tissues at that site and they found that that's where the tissues were. It was succinylcholine. Now, the thing is this is a drug that it breaks down really fast when it hits your bloodstream. But at the hospital, they took a sample of blood from her heart to run toxicology tests, and it hadn't broken down yet in the blood that they had collected. So the blood from her heart had succinylcholine. Tissue samples from what they believed were injection sites also had the succinylcholine.
You think it's because she was dying slowly that her blood wasn't pumping as fast as a normal person who was taking these kind of drugs, that it would make her to her heart?
No. You know what? I'm just going to skip ahead. So what succinylcholine is it's actually a paralytic agent that is used for surgeries. So a lot of anesthesiologists, because I've been in enough surgeries lately, before they intubate you or because they intubate you. English is not working for me right now. You get injected with this because it is a paralytic agent, but because it does that, you stop breathing on your own.
But it goes in your vein, right? Not your shoulder.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not meant to be a subcutaneous injection. It's meant to be.
Does that mean muscular?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Just under the skin. Well, there's intramuscular. So that goes into your subcutaneous is where you put it just under your skin, and then intravenous is. And so usually it's put in your IV.
Okay.
But they give it to you, obviously, so you're not twitching in the middle of surgery because that would be very bad. And so it paralyzes you. But in the process of paralyzing you, it also paralyzes your organs, like your lungs. They're a muscle. And so you stop breathing. And that's why you get intubated to ensure that you continue to breathe. Well, if you get injected with this and nobody helps you breathe, you die pretty fast, about 3 to 4 minutes.
If it was in your vein.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Finally, when they re-examined her again, they determined, because there was no autopsy the first time, so they looked at her head again, and they determined that the injury to her head would not have caused her death and possibly would not even have caused her to lose consciousness. So that was not how she died, was the blow to her head. It was the succinylcholine.
I'm just dying to find out how he got her off the horse, but I know you're going to get to that.
Mm-hmm. So October 13th, 1981, David was indicted for first-degree murder. All right. There was a problem. So we're going to have to flip this to what was happening during the investigation while all this was happening on the scientific side with her. Then we have the David side. Okay. It was discovered that David was a former pharmacology student who dated a woman, Kay Kendall, in the mid 1970s. He told her during that time about SUX. And yeah, it's called SUX for short, and I don't want to keep having to say succinylcholine. So sorry. Unless you like how I say it.
I like it.
Succinylcholine. He basically said if someone killed with it, it would be the perfect crime because they would die fast and it's practically undetectable unless you know to look for it, which is kind of right. In 1978, he decided it was time to change his identity for whatever reason, and he now became David Meyer Bell. He asked Kay to marry him at that time, and she declined. So they broke up. That was April 1979. Pay attention to these dates. Okay. April 1979.
Okay.
Mhm. That same month, he started dating a woman named Janine Homan. And after 1 month, they were talking about marriage. He told her, let's just go to Vegas and get it done. And she said, not yet, right? But they stayed together. The next month, he asked again.
Nice.
She said, no, we're now in July. So April.
3 months later.
Okay. So by July, he was asking again. And she said, still not yet. That next month is when he met Shannon at the wedding, which was August. He's still dating. It's either Janine or Jeannie. I think it's Jeannie.
Well, how do you spell it?
Jeanne. See? I think it's Jeannie. All right. So he's still dating Jeannie when he meets and starts falling in love with Shannon. But now remember, him and Shannon were married like a month after they met. So they met August 4th, married September 24th. He had met Jeannie in April.
Oh, April.
And it's now August. Okay. So he's got them both going. What he told Jeannie like a week before he was to marry Shannon was, okay, maybe this is believable for the type of person he was. And I don't know what he told Jeannie, because remember, he's been a pharmacology student. He's now a millionaire land developer. I don't know what Jeannie was told that he did for a living, but what he said is, I can't see you for a year because I'm going to be doing something dangerous that I can't tell you about. So she thought he was working for the government.
Oh, yeah.
He said it would look like he was married to another woman, but ignore anything that's been written in the papers because it's all fake. Which it reminds me of, did you ever watch that TV show, The Americans, with Felicity actor. What's her name?
I don't know.
Curly haired. Doesn't matter. But The Americans, it's like where a couple of Soviets come and he has to, pretend to be married to somebody. And yeah. So apparently it was done at the time, so it could be believable. I don't know. There was no such thing as social media, so you didn't have to worry about getting caught or anything along those lines. So because she thought that he was working for the government, she was like, okay, go ahead. Well, it didn't take a year because 1 month after he married Shannon, they started their relationship up again. So he's married to Shannon, carrying on this affair with Jeannie. But
Yeah.
Jeannie doesn't know he's in any other relationship. She's being duped. Now, in June 1980, Jeannie asked him, like, how much longer is this going to go on? And he said, the government's paying me $250,000 for the work I'm doing. The life insurance policy was going to be $220,000. When Jeannie asked how much longer, June 1980, he said, it'll be less than a month.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. July 8th.
Yeah.
Now, on July 29th, the month that Shannon died, he and Jeannie were headed to Florida. But before they went all the way to Florida, he stopped in Toledo because he decided to leave her at the mall. He said, I got to run some errands here. When in reality, he went to his deceased wife's parents' house to return pillows. I don't know. And to tell them he was going off to the desert to find himself. This was like 2 days after she was buried. And he's running off with his mistress.
Yeah. Red flag.
Like you said, there is no bad, distinctive way to grieve, but I don't think this one's it. Now, at this point, Jeannie still had no clue that he had actually been married. She didn't know that his wife had died in an accident and buried just days before. She said his behavior never changed, at all during any of that time.
Sociopath.
Yep. So they stayed in Florida for 1 week, and then she flew home to Michigan. And then nothing. David's gone.
Finding himself in the desert.
But like for a while. Now, December 24th, 1981, David now had a new girlfriend because that was July. So now we're into December. Nobody has had contact. Remember, he didn't show up to that court hearing for the injunction. So December 24th, 1981, his new girlfriend, Monica Yozel, Yoezle. Yeah. They were staying near Tahiti on a sailing boat. He called his attorney in Michigan, kind of found out shit's hitting the fan, if you will. And he docked his boat in Haiti, left it, and Monica. And he basically told Monica, go to Florida, get a job, wait for me. I'll be there soon.
And he stayed there.
Oh, no. He just poof.
Yeah.
Gone.
In Haiti.
Maybe. Because she didn't see him again until he was arrested. And that happened January 1989.
Whoa.
So he was on the run for just about 8 years. He was found because he was featured on Unsolved Mysteries in 1987. And nothing happened, but then it had a rerun in 1988. And that's what led to the tip in January 1989, which led to his capture in Pago Pago, American Samoa, where he already had a new wife. Okay, so before I get into the trial, remember how I said that it was known that they would get freaky deaky in not in public, but
out on the rides.
Yeah, like, so it was surmised, like everybody put it together that what he did is they parked their horses.
Yeah.
And that's why they were strapped up. And he enticed her to have a little something time.
Yeah.
And that's why her boots were off and her blouse was partway done. And, she was getting ready to have some fun. It was assumed that it was then and there that he injected her with the succinylcholine and then smashed her head against that rock to make the blood.
Well, the bruising on her arm could have been from restraining her.
No, it was the injections. She was injected in 2 places.
Oh, 2 places.
Wrist and shoulder.
Oh, wrist. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so then he got the blood when he did move her. But yeah, that's why she was most likely dead before, or like the rock was not what killed her. Yeah. She was in the process of dying. She was paralyzed, suffocating, while her husband smashed her head on a rock. So she was still bleeding because she was still alive. And then he left her to die.
That's terrible.
So that's what they believe happened. And that's why she had no shoes and her blouse was undone and that the horses were most likely tied up.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems super logical to me. Now, his trial began almost a year later. So after it would have been 1990, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. And he served his life because he died in prison at the age of 70 in 2014.
And they took him back to Ohio or Michigan?
Yes, Michigan. But yeah, Ohio's the one that did all the testing just because that's where her body was. It was like a very multi-jurisdictional.
The family lived
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, it was very multi-jurisdictional done. But that was only a couple pages worth. And
I still have more.
Well, because here at Bloody Besties, if I give you one case, it's going to be really in-depth and really long, like Sir Harry Oakes. But that just wasn't long enough for me, and there's too many succinylcholine deaths. So you'll sense a theme. But
Sucky suck.
it sucks to suck. But this episode is all about love.
That's right.
All right. This next case is actually, well, okay, this one has nothing to do with love, but it was too fascinating for me to pass over, and it's a current event. So we're going to have to, we're going to have to stay up to date on this. I came across it when, whatever. It was in my rabbit hole search, and I was like, excuse me, what? It's literally happening right now. Therefore, every person that I am going to mention is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. This is the information that has been made public, and I did use the affidavits to write this. So these are court records that I used.
So you don't have to say allegedly if they're court records.
Well, presume everything I am going to say on this case is alleged. All people involved are innocent
until proven guilty by the court of law.
And everything that I tell you is in court records. So I am going off of people's sworn statements as to the events and their involvement. I think that's enough disclaimers.
I sure hope so.
Don't sue me. Don't sue me. Don't sue me. We're broke.
Yeah, $1.
All right. March 21st, 2023.
Last year.
This is what I'm saying. It's current. At 11:46, officers went for a welfare check at the law offices of Blanchard Law in Miami, Florida. And that's because Jack Blanchard had reported that one of his employees, Stephen Cozy, who was 41, had gone to the bathroom at 9:50 and never returned to his desk. We have, people that monitor our time very strongly at work, but
Right.
there's a reason that it was noticed that he never returned. And that's because he was due to have a teleconference call with Dr. Tomasz Kosowski. He goes by Dr. K, and that's how I will refer to him from now on, who was a plastic surgeon at 10 a.m. And he never made the call. So that's how they knew he went to the bathroom. Like, as most of us do, we just did it. You go to the bathroom before you know that you're supposed to be sitting for a while.
Yeah, locked down for an hour or so.
Yeah. So he went to the bathroom and he never made the call. He never went back to his desk. When Jack went to the bathroom to check on him, like, hey, call's happening. Where you at? He saw what appeared to be blood in the bathroom. He went to his desk. His desk still had his cell phone keys and wallet on it, and his computer still had the case file open. Further, his vehicle was still in the parking lot. Officers went into the office and agreed, like they did their search, like y'all have to do. It's like IT. Did you try turning it off and turning it back on again? You have to say that.
Yeah.
I'm going to segue here for a second. Remember when I worked for Hewlett Packard as technical support?
No. No.
It was for their printer scanner copier division.
That's got to be the worst.
It was.
Printers were terrible.
I mean, I still use them at work, but I don't mind Hewlett Packard, but that's just because I know how to fix them.
Printers in general piss me off.
Yes. But this is, before I had my career that I have now, I was technical support. And you would be surprised the amount of times I can't even get the screen to turn on. I'm like, is it plugged in? Thank you.
There's a show about that.
Okay.
I watched a couple episodes and that was the joke.
Yeah.
Turn it on and off.
Yeah. So many times. I'm like, do you have a drawer open?
I think the show's called IT.
Probably. But yeah, my other favorite was, I can't get the papers to feed. Is the tray open? Yes, that way I can see if the papers are feeding. It can't feed with the tray open. Close the tray and tell me if it feeds.
These are California people.
Yes. Actually, nationwide.
Okay.
It was, we were nationwide. But anyway, so it was like that. The police had to go through. They were like, yes, we agree. He is not in the building. They checked local hospitals to see if anyone matching his description or name was admitted. Nobody. So he was listed missing before 3:00 that afternoon. So we're talking, this case is going to go fast. I'm just going to spoil this for you. To date, he's never been found. What? His husband, Michael Montgomery, didn't hear from him, didn't see that he was like, no text, nothing to say, I'm doing this, I'm going here, I'm doing that. Like I said, he missed the call. His cards have never been used. There's been no sightings of him. Nothing.
There's no camera footage.
Oh, we're getting to that.
Okay.
We're getting to that.
Not good.
Now, Michael wants it to be recorded that his life is not only about him missing, presumed dead at this point. He wants the public to know that Stephen was brilliant, loving, caring. He can also be tough when needed, and that's how he became a lawyer, a successful lawyer. The couple met in 2018. They were engaged the following year and married during COVID, October 17th, 2020. Stephen loved animals, and the couple had a cat and a couple dogs, and he just loved them. And I tried to get even more, like his law partners loved him. His friends and family had nothing but fond memories of him. And again, we try to be victim centric here. And since it's so current, it was kind of easy to find this stuff. But yeah, they seemed like they had a really good, healthy relationship. And it's a bummer that they only got to be together for 5 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Michael is still heartbroken and waiting to find out what happens with this case.
Gotta get some closure.
Hopefully, because nobody. So police started looking at the surveillance because this is a very recent case. We have surveillance now. And they saw that from the parking lot, there was a gray colored Toyota Tundra that was present in the parking lot by 8:30 a.m. The occupant was a male who entered the law offices with a very large box, and he happened to be wearing gloves. At 10:22, that same man left the law office, but now he was pulling a wagon with the box inside the wagon.
Oh no, he chopped him up and put him in the box. What's in the box?
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So the box is now put into the bed of that silver truck, and it is covered, gray truck, and it's now covered with a red cloth. The truck had New Jersey license plate that when it was run, it wasn't registered to any vehicle. We're in Florida and it had a Jersey plate. So the truck is being tracked. Cameras are everywhere these days.
Yeah.
So they were
CT cameras.
Yeah. So I'm not going to tell you, like, they have multiple stops where they saw this truck driving. And side note here, it appears that the same truck may have been in the same parking lot previously on March 14th, because there was a report filed that day from a veterinary clinic that shared a wall with the law firm. And an employee found a man hiding in their utility closet. And when he was found, he was crouched in there in the dark. And the employee walks in and is like, well, what are you doing here? As any one of us would be kind of panicked that this man that you don't know is in your utility closet.
God damn.
And all he said is, there was a power outage, and then ran out of the clinic. Well, police responded because this was super weird. And they actually fingerprinted the utility closet area, and they recovered an index fingerprint that traced back to Dr. K, who was supposed to have the teleconference call. Wow. Okay. Moving along. Who is Dr. K? He graduated from Dartmouth College Medical School with his medical degree and an MBA in 2007, simultaneously. So super smart. He was in residency from 2008 to 2014. During this, he was also doing 3 plastic surgery fellowships in 2007 to 2015. He has a specialty in breast augmentation surgeries, and he goes by Dr. K and lives in a very expensive waterfront home in Tarpon Springs. Dr. K was defending himself in a lawsuit against his former employer, Laufer Institute for Plastic Surgery, and the coworkers that he started 4 years prior in 2019. So it's a civil lawsuit. It's been going on for 4 years. The lawsuit said that the woman that they had assigned by the plastic surgery group to handle his insurance billing wasn't actually filing the claims, and that she was lying to the patients about it. So saying, I don't know why your claim's not getting, processed. I filed it. But in reality, he's claiming that she never did, which led to numerous negative reviews online, as we all know can shut down a business, as well as him having to pay out tens of thousands of dollars to try and cover what was happening because medical billing wasn't being billed. So he's trying to recoup his costs and his reputation by suing this group. Well, this group was being represented by Steve. He was their lawyer.
Okay.
And it got very tumultuous to the point where he tried to have Stephen removed as the attorney for that company. But you can't do that.
Yeah, because he didn't hire him.
Yeah, but you can, if there's a conflict of interest, yeah, anything along those lines, even if you're an opposing attorney, you could be like, there's misconduct, malfeasance, anything like that that's happening. I'd like to have this attorney removed because I don't think that they're conducting themselves in the manner that they should as the lawyer. But it didn't work. He was still on the case, hence why they were supposed to have the teleconference call, because it was about the case. Now, Stephen was not a part of the teleconference call that day, but Dr. K was. He was on that call from 10:27. The call started at 10:30 until 11.
A long time to sit there and wait.
Remember, he left the law firm at 10:22. Well, the man that was in the gray truck walked out of the law offices with the box and the wagon at 10:22. Dr. K was on the phone call at 10:27.
And it was probably Zoom. You could do in your
teleconference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't Zoom, even if it's just over the phone, it didn't say that it necessarily was video, because it didn't say video conference call. It specifically said teleconference. Police processed the bathroom. So we're going back to the law bathroom, and they also saw the red smears. It was on the bathroom door, in a stall on the wall, on the floor, and on the toilet of that stall, and then a small amount on the side of a urinal. The stains on the floor appeared to have been smeared around, and there was a smell of chemicals present. These stains were tested, and the DNA was from Steve. So all of that blood, because yes, it was blood, all of that blood came back to Steve following back to the truck. So like all of this is happening at the same time. It's whoop, 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 whoop. Obviously, the DNA took forever, but I decided to shortcut that.
Did they find any of Dr. K's DNA? Because he didn't like nick himself. Am I spoiling this again?
We're getting there.
Darn me. Questions and true crime knowledge.
You know what? Somebody out there is doing the same thing. Like, what about him?
I know. You always nick yourself when you're doing stuff
Usually,
like that.
yes. And it's, usually. They do have like, guards on certain knives.
Helms. Is it called helm? Like the part that stops your hand from reaching the blade?
On the hilt?
Hilt.
Okay.
Hilt.
Yes. The hilts. And some, like the ones that have what look like brass knuckles. I'm not going to tell you guys which knives to use that don't cut you when you're stabbing. I'm not telling you. But there are some out there.
Find the brass knuckle
guy. No. So they go back to tracing the truck on video, and they saw it in the area of Dr. K's home on a Ring camera down the street. Police had what they needed to get a search warrant specifically for this truck that they believed was in his home. And therefore, where the truck was, they had a search warrant to cover that area as well. So they found the truck parked in his garage. So they were able to look at the truck and the garage. In the bed of the truck, it tested presumptively positive for blood. Yeah, we have color tests that you could do in the field, and you can then collect it, and that's how you run your DNA. There was also stains on the floor of the garage.
Now, this color test can tell the difference between animal blood. You can't say that he was hunting.
No. Okay. There's a few different tests that you can do. One of the color tests just tells you if it is possibly blood because it tests, I'll just call it the hemoglobin.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one, it tests the hemoglobin. Now, they also have this other one that I took part in a study for one of my intern's master's projects. And it's kind of like a card, just like you used to do for the COVID tests.
I never took a COVID test.
Not a single one.
Not a single one.
Oh, I had surgery during COVID, so I had to get a bunch.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it sucked. I had to get a couple surgeries. But so it's like a pregnancy test. Basically, it's got the one line versus two lines.
Right.
And so if you have the one line, it's animal blood. And if you have the two lines, it's human blood.
So they did that to the...
No, you don't have to in the field if you're just going to collect it anyway. I did the study. It's more for like hit and runs where somebody goes, no, I hit a dog. And you could go out there and you're like,
nope.
No, you didn't.
Ooh.
And then you can collect it. So it's mostly for that kind of
You're
stuff.
A liar.
Undercarriages, you're just like, this is human blood. We're going to run it. Yeah.
Pieces of scalp.
Well, it's not even that. Something that most people don't know is when you take your vehicle in for an oil change, how they are in the oil catches. A lot of those employees, if they see something on your undercarriage, they report it.
Yeah.
And then the police, they have your license plate, they have all the information, and they'll let you go. And they'll just be like, just so you know, this car had some like blood.
Well, because they probably have to get a judge approval to do a search warrant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not quick sometimes.
Mm-mm. But yeah, like they've seen enough undercarriages to where they're like, that'd be blood. And so they'll report it.
That
And the
poor oil change technician is like going about his normal day, and all of a sudden it's, oh, shit.
And it happens. I mean, if you think about how many times you run over roadkill, it happens a lot. And we don't process all of them, but yeah, it can be done. And that is one of our reporters, if you will. Mechanics, oil changes, because people just don't think about it. I'm just telling you guys how to get rid of this. I'm not telling you that.
Common sense.
Yeah.
Like, wash your undercarriage, people.
Ow. Don't. Even still, people that do, I still find the blood.
Find you.
I still find the blood.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now. You ain't that good.
You're not that smart.
Now, while they were doing this, they found out that he owned a sedan as well. And we'll come back to that. The truck and the garage floor had Steve's DNA.
Guilty.
Mixed with Dr. K's. All right. Police recovered his cell phone as now. Cell phone is now? That's not English. Police recovered his cell phone
like
by
Linda.
now. I was trying to say as well and by now at the same time. And the cell phone had searches for the effects of succinylcholine and the amount and the dosage required. So he wouldn't know specifically this because he wasn't an anesthesiologist. He was the surgeon.
Right.
So he knew what it does, but not how or how much. But again, that was just a search. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty.
Don't check our searches.
Oh my gosh, it would be so bad. Oh, my searches are so bad.
Yeah.
It also showed, so they did the cell phone tower pinging. Again, if you're listening to us, chances are you know all about true crime and the cell phone pinging. And they found his cell phone pinged in the area of the law offices until it was turned off at 8:08 a.m. So he was in the parking lot by 8:08. It was powered back on just in time for that teleconference call at 10:27. Yeah. Cell phone records can then trace him to a remote area in west of Miami at a place called the Tamiami Trail. And there they found, like, really tucked off and in the middle of the night, it's a super dark area, there was a dumpster. Now, they traced this dumpster and they figured out the trash company that takes care of it. They figured out who the trash guy was at the time during this time period. By the way, he went back to this area a couple days later. By the time he went back a couple days later, the trash had already been emptied. So theoretically, possibly, maybe the person with the cell phone that was in the area was looking to see if the trash had been taken out.
Yeah. Revisiting the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
Dumpster.
Now, the garbage truck driver, George Volante, when questioned, he said, "Oh, yeah, there was a smell that day that was vile. It was worse than any other trash smell I've ever smelled. It was not normal. I'm a trash guy. I know what trash is supposed to smell like."
And he did nothing.
I've had cases like this where somebody's like, "Oh, yeah, that smell ain't right. That smell is not right." And I had like another one. Well, it might have been the same case. The people noticed that there was like kind of sludge leaking out of the dumpster and they just hosed it down the drain.
Yeah.
It is.
Makes you want to shake people.
I mean, you don't want to think that. In this case, they were like, okay, maybe it's like a dog, maybe it's, who knows. So then the dump, or like where they dump it, there's video of it getting dumped, and they saw a bag that they believed was in the shape of a human.
That's a lot of evidence. Like, how many times do you get to see a video of them actually dumping?
I mean,
I know you've scavenged landfills before.
Oh yeah, there's an entire process for.
It's like a grid, so they could tell which section he dumped in that day too.
Mm-hmm. The problem is they compact their trash there.
Yeah. Layers.
When it's compacted, it's very difficult, almost impossible to recover anything that might have been in that compacted trash. So unfortunately, they just didn't go for it because they were like, it's near. That's kind of one of those last ditch effort things. Like if you have nothing else, that's the only reason that we have done landfill searches is when there is nothing else and you need that body to figure it out.
So prosecutors figured they had enough evidence where they didn't need a body. So it's not a no body, no crime.
Well, we're getting there because
I'm impatiently waiting.
I know we're getting there.
Can you tell I love this?
Yes, this is a good case for you.
I know.
In addition, they took a cadaver dog to the area of the dumpster, and the cadaver dog did hit on the dumpster.
Was that one of the topics you were going to do, cadaver dogs? Or is that
oh my gosh.
one?
No, I have five different episodes that are just going to be about cadaver dogs, what they've done, and the cases that they were involved in. I also have like another series that's all about trucker serial killers. So be used to getting some series out of us.
Okay.
Because
hold on to your butt.
Yes. So yeah, they didn't go for the trash to try and recover the body, which is possibly why he hasn't been recovered to this stage, just because they knew it was going to be next to impossible. They finally believed that they had enough to arrest Dr. K. That happened March 25th. And at the time, they also got a search warrant for the rest of his house and the sedan. In the sedan, they found blood in the trunk. The blood was from Steve and Dr. K. Mixed. They also found $280,000 cash, ski masks, a Guy Fawkes mask, plastic brass knuckles, a stun gun, duct tape, guns, a ballistic vest with EMS Velcro patch, law enforcement patches, trash bags, a crowbar, and a vial of succinylcholine. This vehicle and
the two face masks, though. So
Mhm.
he's getting a buddy and so much money.
Yeah, lots of money. And he also had his passport with him,
Oh, bye.
theoretically. Oh, they also saw that his truck and the sedan had like the license plate flipping device. Those things are so cool. I looked up a video of
Is
how
it
they
like
work.
a cover?
No, so it's you have one license plate and then you push a button in your cab and it flips it up. And then there's another one down below that pops up. So you could flip between the two.
Wow.
And the other license plate that was on one of the vehicles was registered to a dead man. So he had the flipper with two separate. So the New Jersey plate had not been registered yet. And then the other one was registered to a dead man. In his home, in the garage area, they found a bag with gloves, gun parts, tactical body armor, Velcro patches with sheriffs and EMS. And then all around the garage were guns and gun cases, like in the hundreds. If I could afford that many guns, I mean, that wouldn't be weird to find in my house. If I could afford them, I would have them. I like them. But then again, I'm in the firearms unit. So if I don't, I have a problem. That's the last I could find according to the court documents, with the latest update being published December 30th, 2024. And they are going for the death penalty case. It is surmised, the police believe, that Dr. K was laying in wait in the law office bathroom where he injected Steve with succinylcholine, which is skeletal muscle relaxant. After the injection, it was believed that he killed him there in the bathroom. It was then that he put him in the box that he was seen dragging with a wagon. And I didn't mention this, but on the video, it appeared as though something heavy was in the wagon.
So light when he brought it in and heavy when he
Well,
was leaving.
it wasn't even a wagon. He was just carrying a box. So it's
like
believed that the
collapsed.
wagon was in the box.
I have a collapsed wagon.
Mm-hmm. It was believed that he then put the box in the truck. At the house, he moved the box or the body from the truck into the trunk of the sedan in order to take it to the dumpster where he put his body. And then he went back a couple days later to make sure that the body had been dumped.
Any signs of cuts on his hands or anything that you could find?
Then no record of
his
it.
blood was in there.
No record. Like I said, everything that I'm giving you is off court records. You may see some news articles that may state a couple of different things. I decided to go with court records and sworn affidavits, right? Because I'm sorry, I ain't going to perjure myself. So I'd assume that others wouldn't either.
And journalists are lazy sometimes.
Sometimes. But yes, we will keep you posted on this case as it continues. In addition, Steve Cozy's family sued the property where Steve went missing for negligence, and that's because of the incident at the vet clinic. The property did nothing to improve security from March 14th until he went missing March 21st. I said it happened.
So when I had my store, it wasn't the property owner's job for security. It was our job for security. That must just be how it was written in their lease.
Maybe. I don't know, but they won. The family won. They did. The suit was completed February 2024. So about a year later. Now, I know how much Mel hates open-ended cases, so I decided to give you one quickie closing out case just to appease your appetite. And it's a little teaser for what's coming in February, because we have a couple of Valentine's Day episodes for you. Oh, yes. Some form of it. Sorry. Because this case happened Valentine's Day, 1998. Surgical technician Kimberly it's Haricko or Rico? Hricko.
H is weird.
Yeah. Sorry if I got it wrong. I looked it up and I've already forgotten. I'm sorry. She was 33 and she was on a romantic vacation with her husband, Steve, who was 35.
Steve.
Yes. This is the case of Steve's.
Sucks to be Steve.
Aw, that was mean.
It does.
How do you know Steve's the victim?
I'm assuming.
At a golf resort in Maryland's Eastern Shore, their 9-year marriage was kind of having difficulties. And so Steve was just like, let's go for a romantic getaway. Let's work on us. While there was a murder mystery play where guests would participate. This is the whole reason that he picked it. So like it was this whole February 14th, like we're going to have a murder mystery dinner, which, oh my gosh, I want to do this so bad. And this one involved a groom drinking poisoned champagne and he died after the toast. And it was titled Mafia Wedding. Do you want to know who did it in that murder mystery play? Because I know who did it.
What do you mean who did it?
Somebody murdered the groom. It's a murder mystery play.
In real life? Or
No, it's a play. Like, you know, those murder mystery dinners where like you're having dinner and then like a murder happens and you have to solve it?
I've never done one, but you had me go to that girls'
Yes.
game.
Yes.
We dressed up as fairy tale
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Yes. So do you want to know who did the killing in Mafia Wedding?
No. I mean, yes, I want to know. I don't know the answer.
It was the bride's mother. She killed the groom.
Oh.
Well, at 1 a.m., so this is the 15th, Kim walked into their hotel room and she saw smoke. She ran to the front desk to have them call 911. A fellow guest, Philip Parker Jr., and a hotel worker heard her screaming for help, so they broke down the door and they dragged Steve, a golf course superintendent, out of the room, but he was already dead. Kim said that after dinner, she and Steve bought some beers. Steve drank a lot, got super sloppy drunk, and they had a fight about him wanting to have sex and she didn't. So she took off to go stay with her friend. She got lost and decided to turn around and just go back to the room. And that was when she saw smoke coming from the cottage. When the fire was extinguished, it's believed that it extinguished itself, that it didn't go so much.
Ran out of fuel.
Yeah, so it was noted that it originated in the bed, and on the bed as well, there was a cigar missing from a pack that Kim had said belonged to Steve. Things weren't adding up because Steve's friend said he doesn't drink or smoke,
Oh.
and there's no evidence. Okay, I keep going back and forth on this. Okay, somebody brought in an arson dog. Not somebody. An arson investigator brought in an arson dog. The dog hit on the bed. By the time that got to the lab, there was no ignitable fluids detected. So the guy couldn't testify that his dog hit in that area because it's not legally admissible unless it's confirmed.
Oh.
So, beside that point, he did say it hit, couldn't be admitted. The judge said no, according to court records.
Okay.
Well, according to the appeals. Questions were even furthered because the medical examiner said he had been dead before the fire started because he didn't die from a heart attack from carbon dioxide. There was no drugs or alcohol in his system. His blood alcohol content was 0.0. He had not died from pesticides, even though he was the golf course groundskeeper. He had no soot in his nostrils or in his mouth area.
He wasn't breathing in smoke.
Nope. And the autopsy showed the only thing that he had in his system was prescription medication and antidepressants and muscle relaxers. So that's all that was in his system. But as I already said, SUX breaks down real fast.
You know what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't actually found in his system, but that was what it was. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a part of this episode. All right. So it was time for the police to look into the background of the couple. And that's when they found out that they did have a 9-year-old daughter, Anna, that they were going to counseling to save their marriage because Kim asked for a divorce. And Steve said, can we just please try to work on this? And he had a journal that said, I just want this marriage to work. I don't think she realizes how much I love her. I just need this marriage to work. She's my everything. That very. Back to Kim's statement about what happened. She said after the fight, she was going to go see her friends. Her friends were 15 minutes from the hotel. She got lost and was gone for at least 2 hours. She also never called her friends for help, but definitely had a cell phone because police saw it in her hand when they arrived. When they asked her why she didn't call her friends, she said, I don't want to wake them up. Even though she was going to their house to wake them up. Why wouldn't you call somebody to let them know that you're showing up on their doorstep?
Make this make sense.
Yeah. And then they presented her with the fact they said, I thought you said that he was like sloppy drunk. She's like, yeah. And they go, well, his blood alcohol content was 0.0. And all she said after that was a bunch of times, I just don't understand. I just don't understand. I don't understand. That was her only statement. Of note, there was an assistant district attorney, Henry Dove, who sat at the table with them during that murder mystery dinner. And he said, if he drank it all, it was maybe 1 beer. And he testified to that. He goes, 2 tops, absolutely no more. Which that would be out of your system theoretically by that time of night, depending on what time you drank it. But after the autopsy was complete, She was pushing heavily for cremation. It was the only thing that she cared about after his death. She didn't care about the planning of the funeral. She didn't care about anything. Well, she also cared about collecting his life insurance policy.
Oh.
Now, weeks after this,
Did she just take it out 2 weeks before this?
no, they've had the life insurance policy for a while. Okay. A couple weeks before he died, his wife, Kim, had told Jenny Gowan and Norma Waltz, who worked at Holy Cross with her, that she'd be better off if Steve was dead. She trusted them because they were super close. Kim was a bridesmaid in Jenny's wedding. It was this wedding where she met Jenny's cousin, Brad Winkler, a military man, and shortly after, in 1997, they started an affair. A couple of weeks before Steve's death, she told her high school friend, Rachel McCoy, that she could get a drug from work that she could inject Steve with that would cause him to be paralyzed and stop breathing. She further stated this drug cannot be traced. She said she could make it look like an accident by lighting a cigar or candles to set a fire with Steve in the house. Let's be more specific. She told her neighbor, Terry Armstrong, that she was thinking of several ways to kill Steve for insurance money.
Idiot.
In addition, they found out that she had a coworker, Ken Burgess, who said he was offered either $5,000 or $50,000 a year before, couldn't remember which,
5 or 50?
to find someone to kill her husband. He didn't pay attention too much because he was like kind of joking,
Or
like,
shit.
well, like it's just one of those things where you're like, if I give you $5,000, would you kill my husband? Like he thought it was one of those. Yeah, but
I've never been asked that question.
I have never either. But what he did is he turned around and basically said, like it was an offhanded comment, saying you wouldn't have to hire anyone, just grab some Cure Air, which is the name brand for SUX, and it just put him to sleep. It was that comment.
Now he's going to get in trouble for
well, he
planning it.
Well, he testified against her, but he did have to admit on the stand that he was convicted for welfare fraud during this whole time. But whatever. But yeah, it was his offhanded comment during their investigation talking about how he told her to get Cure Air that led the ME to even test for it, even though he didn't find it. But that's where everybody started thinking, like, this is why he wasn't breathing at the time of the fire.
Yeah, paralyzed.
Yes. The police believed that they had enough to take her to trial. They took her for murder and arson, and that was 11 months after he was murdered. The trial wasn't smooth, however, as actually 2 jurors had to be dismissed because they were snoring during testimonies. Like they were so hard asleep, they were snoring. They were so bored. But it's also because the court every day was in session from 8:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. because the judge was making it happen within a week.
Wow.
For some reason, he was like, let's get her done. And so the jurors, I couldn't even stay awake for 11 hours of testimony. Come on. That's insane. Well, it worked because a man came forward to admit, and during the trial, that's when Brad was like, yeah, I had an affair with her. The funny part is after she was arrested, he never contacted her again. He was like, oop. So if it was to be with him, it did not work. No. Of note, everything in this case is circumstantial. They didn't have any hard physical evidence that she did anything personally. It's just a bunch of things that added up, and it was enough for the jury to find her guilty and sentence her to life plus 30 years arson in the year of 1999. And she is currently still in prison serving her time in Maryland, but people are still fighting for her release, saying that she was wrongfully convicted. So there's your little Valentine's Day teaser for the month of February.
Love it.
Get ready for some wild rides, because again, we've got a bunch of anthologies. It's just a bunch of different cases. All right. See you next time.
Bye, y'all.
The views and thoughts expressed in this podcast are ours alone and do not represent the thoughts or opinions of anyone else. The information presented is for general information purposes only. We are not liable for anything you do with this information.